Hey everyone, Sean Deveney here from Heavy Sports. We're here to talk a little bit about the NBA here in late August. It's still a very hot topic. The league has not gone away the way it usually does in the dog days of summer. I'm fortunate to have with me Steve Bulpett, our NBA insider. Hi, Steve. How are you?
Doing well, Sean. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. Good to see that the NBA is still making headlines on August 30th, August 31st. We don't usually see that.
Well, it's kind of what they've always wanted, to have like a 12-month calendar where they're at least in the public conscious, excuse me. So yeah, it's, a little drama is good for the soul.
Speaking of drama, let's start with a guy who maybe has gotten overlooked in all the drama that we've seen over the last few months, and that's Montrezl Harrell, the former Sixth Man of the Year from the Clippers, now with the Hornets, but he's a free agent and had a little trouble finding a team, in part because he had some legal trouble with the marijuana charge that has since been greatly reduced and puts him pretty much out of legal jeopardy. His record can be expunged after 12 months. Is there still a spot for this guy? I think is the bigger question. For a guy who's very good offensively in the paint, not great defensively, not a three-point shooter, but certainly a guy who can give you 12, 15 points a night.
Yeah, there's a spot for him. I don't think the pending legal issue was a problem. I don't think people look at that substance as a real concern in terms of the potential issues that are out there. Certainly not like one of his teammates from last year. Yeah. I think there's a fit for him. It's just a question of finding the right place, and I'm sure he's looking at. I mean, maybe not the kind of money he wants to make, but failing the highest bidder kind of thing, he's got to look for a spot where he can fit, play a good role, a role that will enhance his earning, perhaps down the line to next year.
Yeah, there's some teams that could obviously use a guy like him. Miami comes to mind, having lost PJ Tucker. Chicago has looked for depth in the front court as well. Both of those teams are close to the luxury tax, though, and probably not likely to go over for a guy like Montrezl Harrell. Is that something where you get to this point in the summer and you're still a free agent? You can't necessarily look for I want to be with the contender. You've got to say, I got to find the open spot here in the musical chairs.
Yeah, I think he's got some time to wait, though. The teams you're talking about, Miami and Chicago, that's where they are roster-wise now. That's not to say that they won't be making a move that clears out some roster space. I mean, I'd be surprised if Miami sticks with the 14 it has right now all the way through. I guess it could happen, but yeah, I don't see it. I think you need to maintain some kind of flexibility. And if they're not going to go over the luxury tax or risk going over the luxury tax, then I don't see them, being how are they going to contend if they don't?
Yeah.
I don't think as currently constituted, Miami has addressed its need for size.
Yeah, this is another topic we could now move to, and that's the Miami Heat and what their future holds. Because obviously this is a contender. They were within arguably a Jimmy Butler 3-pointer of getting into the NBA Finals. Certainly in that Game 7 Eastern Conference Finals against Boston, they had the Wild come back and had a shot to win that game. This is a team that obviously is a contender, but they do seem to be taking the same approach that they took last year, which is, they didn't want to use. They were very careful about staying below the luxury tax. Now they're $162,000, just $162,000 with Udonis Haslem coming back below that luxury tax with 14 players on the roster. They could spend. They've got $4 million to spend in their biannual exception. They probably won't because they want to stay below that tax. Is this something that that can be? If you're Jimmy Butler at 33, if you're Kyle Lowry at 36, where you're maybe saying, wait, you're not going to spend this money?
Yeah, I look, and I'd look at however old Pat Riley is and say, look, is he going to sit around for this as well? Again, I'd look to see them. If I wouldn't be surprised if Miami makes a move that clears out some space. But I think they know that right now they are, as currently constituted, really like on the edge of contendership. They can say, well, it's all wide open, and one injury to an opponent, to a opponent above them could change things. Sure. But the Heat has to know that that it's going to be a tough slog for them with the way it is right now. They're banking on Victor Oladipo being a lot better coming back from injury, and I would ascribe to that theory. But enough that you're going to be able to. You're putting a lot of eggs in Bam Adebayo's basket, and you're asking their big guys what they have to do a lot.
Yeah, and Ira Winderman, the longtime beat writer there, had something the other day where he suggested that Jimmy Butler could be the starting power forward on that team. Butler's probably a more natural shooting guard. If you look at the numbers, he's played something like 10% of his total career minutes at power forward. But, their situation being what it is, you can wind up with Jimmy Butler at power forward. And again, I just wonder if that does him a disservice at 33 years old.
Yeah, I mean, it's then you look at who they're matching up with. Is it going to be fun for him to match up with PJ Tucker when they play Philadelphia? There's matches, there's cross matches, there's switches, and teams kind of junk up their defenses anyway. But I still think, I think Miami needs more to be in there to have a really good outlook on a chance in the East.
And when you say that they could still, create some cap space or create roster room or whatever it may be, do you anticipate a Duncan Robinson deal? Is that where you're looking? And could that happen before the start of the season even?
I think most anything is on the table for Miami. They've got some, it's going to be hard to move some people, but if they move a Duncan Robinson, I could see them doing that, but it's maybe not what they get back in return what they want. Maybe they want the space, but the question becomes, what's the corollary move to that? Who else do you have in mind that you're going to use that space on, and make yourself better on the other end of it?
Right. If they did want Montrezl Harrell, for instance, you could trade away Duncan Robinson for a contract that creates, that's maybe $13 million, maybe $3 million less than what Robinson makes, mm-hmm. And then you've got some money you can go out and sign. You could sign a guy like Montrezl Harrell, not him necessarily, but you could maybe do something like that. And
you can say, you got to see what guys shake loose. We're way early here, and I think teams, if they didn't before, they certainly look now and look at a Boston last year, 3 games under 500 in January, and it's a question of, when do you get it together? As long as you're in the mix, in the playoff mix, it's finding the right fit, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in September and October that you find it. It's great if you can find the roster that's going to carry you through the season, but it's not a requirement.
Yeah, and it's important to note too that they signed, like you said, they re-signed Victor Oladipo, they re-signed Caleb Martin. There's a window before they could look into trading those guys, including those guys in a deal. So that's something that can develop along the way as the season progresses as well with Miami. We'll see where that goes for them.
I think in a recent story, might have been last week, I wrote that I had a GM telling me basically, the next window you got to look at is in December.
Yeah,
that's like the next when guys who've been signed or whatever dealt for this summer are eligible to be traded. That's when you're going to see, some movement in the league, I believe.
Yeah, yeah. And just switching gears to one of the other big topics that came up this week, and that's R.J. Barrett signing a 4-year, $120 million contract extension. There's some implications here. When you sign when you sign an extension like this, you become much more difficult to trade. Because there's something that they call base year compensation. It's a little bit complicated, but it basically means that if you're a player who's still on your rookie deal with an extension awaiting, it becomes really difficult to trade you until the extension kicks in, which won't be until next year for R.J. Barrett. Of course, he's been talked about in the conversations with Donovan Mitchell. Were you surprised to see the Knicks go ahead and move on R.J. Barrett the way they did?
Not really. I mean, they haven't signed a second contract to a rookie guy like that. Was it Charlie Ward?
Charlie Ward, yeah.
Gosh. But they can still make a Donovan Mitchell deal happen if they want. I think they needed to have a little bit of stability. I guess R.J. Barrett's that guy. They still get some young people they can move, but their issue was this past year and remains, Julius Randle. You basically made him into a star by giving him all those touches, and then he kind of believed he was a star, and it didn't quite work out, team wise for you. So, I still think that the Knicks need some larger overhaul and then some consistency to get things to work, because I just. They're kind of piecing it now, and you bring in Donovan Mitchell into that situation if they're able to do that, and there's going to be a whole lot of expectation, and I'm not sure that the team is going to be good enough that it can have those expectations, even dribble close to reality.
Yeah, I also have the Julius Randle problem, with Donovan Mitchell there. Either way, they're going to have that problem. And I think the bigger issue with giving Julius Randle all those touches is you also gave him 4 years at $117 million and an extension. So now, that you realize that might be a problem, you really can't get out of it because you've just paid him too much.
Yeah, I mean, look, we all know who the best player on that team is. It's the player that had the best education, went to the best college, and of course, we're talking about Obi Toppin. Learn, lead, serve. Yes. So yeah, I mean, look, I think there's a lot of things that have to be fixed there. Maybe R.J. Barrett signing, and being there longer term is a nod toward that kind of stability. But, you start signing guys to big contracts, bigger things are expected. And I've seen contracts ruin players, and ruin teams, going way back to let's go back to John Koncak and in Atlanta. It's like, wait a minute, he's getting that kind of money, and
right.
It didn't do well around the team and around the league. And we're only talking, I mean, it's hilarious, the money we're talking for, I think it was $3.2 million or something, or
right.
Now that's like couch cushion money.
Yeah, and I think it does also speak to R.J. Barrett. Wasn't necessarily the guy that the Jazz absolutely had to have. I think Danny Ainge wanted him just to go ahead and see who else he get. Danny Ainge wasn't going to give him $120 million. So if the Jazz wound up with him, they were going to look to peddle him anyways. It wasn't like he was a make or break factor in that deal. But here's one thing that I do want to bring up is that $120 million for R.J. Barrett has implications for some other guys who are looking at extensions around the league. I think the first one that comes to mind is Jordan Poole, because it's a pretty good comparison. They're about the same age. The numbers are about the same. Poole did it on a winning team, whereas R.J. Barrett hasn't done it on a winning team, but has done it more consistently than Jordan Poole has in terms of what their production has been. Does this worry you if you're the Warriors, or do you expect that Jordan Poole always was going to be about 120 for 4 years? How does that affect that?
Well, I think all these contracts, send ripples through the league, through front offices, through the accounting departments. But look, there comes a point where I put it back toward the player. All the contracts are going to be signed are going to be serious enough, generational money, right? We know that that's going to be the basic thing. And then it becomes a question of, and I think this, something I think I want to get into more this year is, what value do you put on your happiness, your comfort, your basketball happiness, your life happiness? And I think there's going to be a few guys, if you're on a really good team that has really good chemistry and just is going to be successful, that, is it worth going elsewhere for, it's kind of funny to say and out loud, but a few million more, when you already are going to have generational wealth when you sign, as long as you're reasonably bright with your money. So, I'd look at Jordan Poole and say, what do you want? Because if you want the most money, it may not be in Golden State. They're paying huge tax bills, and I think there's going to come a point where that's going to, that'll wear a little thin. But then again, maybe they're comfortable with that for certainly as long as this core will stay together or can stay together in Golden State.
And finally, does it have some implications for Tyler Hero, who has wanted a max contract himself? But you could certainly argue that he's not much better than RJ Barrett, if at all.
Yeah, well, I think, look, for a guy like Tyler Hero, this year is going to be a proving ground. Not just what can you put up numbers-wise, shooting percentages, all those things, but what can you contribute to winning? You know what I mean? And it's, I think, the team's success will play a big role in how he's viewed by the Heat and around the league even. There are guys you can bring in that if you give them the touches, they're going to put up numbers. But are they going to be winning players for you? Are they going to have the head that fits what you're trying to accomplish? So I think, again, this is going to be a really good proving ground for a lot of guys around the league. And it'll be, it's kind of a side issue to watch.
But do you run a risk if you're the Heat and you don't give Tyler Hero an extension and you have him go to restricted free agency next year? Either that he's going to get a big offer or that there'll be some, chemistry issues, sort of what we saw with DeAndre Ayton last year in Phoenix.
I'm not too sure. I think that's a place where he wants to be. And if they make him a reasonable offer, it's good. He's in. If they don't make an offer that he likes, maybe he takes the shorter term, plays that game, bets on himself kind of thing. So, there's a couple of different ways it can go. And we'll see again how tight Miami is with its cap situation, with its luxury tax situation.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Steve. I appreciate you being here, and thank you all for checking us out. Remember to go to Heavy Sports, especially the NBA section, and check out all that Steve is writing and all our other contributors are pitching in. Thank you.